I must have turned it the wrong direction. Now the mic is on. I apologize for everyone online if they had missed that initial prayer. I could. We should have a lot of gratitude for the relationships that we have in our life that are good, but also the ones that are challenging to us because they do help us to grow into greater states of happiness with one another. I wanted to begin our service this morning by just talking about that concept of love. We're coming up on Valentine's Day next week, which we all know is the most important new church holiday, right? It is in some ways a commercial holiday, but it also does have that ability to raise our minds to think about the concept of love in its many different facets. Modern times we talk more about the romantic love when it's associated with Valentine's Day, but we're going to do a little bit more generalized concepts and try to focus in on some particular relationships that you might have in mind. And where I'd want to begin is, this is a challenge from the Lord. The Lord is constantly urging us to learn how to love better, to take that next step in our ability to connect and love one another. And I think that the best place for us to find this challenge, and I was having a chat with Tom yesterday about this topic, and I was telling him a few of the other things, and he said, this passage. And I went, yes, that passage. So that's where we should begin, is that passage. And it's really the most obvious place where the Lord comes and says, this is what the whole point is. And if we think about these words being the whole point of everything that the Lord says in His Word, and it's kind of a culminating, and this is what it's all about, guys. Let's listen to these words from the Lord as a challenge. This is in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, and this is right after He had washed their feet, taken His garments, and sat down again, and He said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you should do as I have done to you." Skipping farther to verse 33, we read, "Little children, I shall be with you a little while longer. You will seek me, and as I said to the Jews, where I am going, you cannot come. So now I say to you, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. As I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." So the Lord here is challenging us. He's saying, I've given you an example. As I came not to serve, or not to be served, but to serve, He came and actually washed His disciples' feet. And you know, Peter had a really awkward moment where he said, no, don't do that to me, right? He fed them food, not just natural food, but a divine food when He broke the bread and blessed it and gave it to them. And that's a beautiful Holy Supper. And then after He does all of these things, He says, friends, this is what it's all about. It's about being together in communion with one another and loving each other as I have loved you. And yet, we aren't always able to live into that challenge, are we? Are we always that loving? And we can get down on ourselves for not being able to raise to the occasion sometimes. And I just want to start off with a very simple, silly example. The other day, Susan came home from work. I had been working mostly from home all day, but in that mindset where I'm working from home and she's working away, and she comes home and the dishes aren't done yet. Inside of me, and she was going, we're hungry, let's go do making food. And so she goes to the kitchen and the dishes are terrible. I hadn't thought about this yet, but she just goes, we have to figure out something about these dishes. Now, in my mindset, I'm going, I've been working all day, and I've been trying to do this thing and that thing, and yes, I wish the dishes were done, but I'm taking it personally because it feels that way. It feels that way. And in my mind, I might want to just go, oh, come on, I might push back. Is that the best thing for me to do there? Or is there another level that's more loving than just snapping back and going, I've done the dishes plenty of times this week? In reality, she's not pointing at me and saying, you need to do the dishes. This was a we thing, and in my mindset, in my moment, I was taking it personally. The reality is we have multiple different levels in ourselves that we operate from, different levels of love, and I want to talk about those today as different kitchens. We have here a nice setup for a romantic meal. Hopefully it's nicer at your Valentine's Day, but I want you to imagine you've got somebody over here. Maybe it's not a romantic meal, maybe it's just you and a friend, and you're cooking for your friend. And I'm thinking about this meal, and I want to, if I love this person, I'm going to put all I can into it, right? And so I might go to the kitchen, and hopefully I have really good equipment that's going to work well. I just went and bought this brand new frying pan yesterday, and I cooked with it for the first time yesterday. It is a game changer in the kitchen, I'll tell you what. There is a level of my heart that can raise up, and I've got the best equipment at my disposal when I'm really thinking with my heart about how I can serve other people. Perhaps my equipment is also doing well, but let's say that the dishes are dirty, and I'm still planning on cooking, and this frying pan isn't actually that great. If you knew, I stuck it into cold water and it warped the bottom, and so now everything just doesn't cook evenly. It's a pretty terrible circumstance. Sometimes when I'm not in a good mood, I might just kind of go, it's a little dirty, but is anybody going to notice? Do we ever do that with our lives when we are just a little bit too depleted, too tired to actually love the way that we want to? We might have some decent equipment, but it's dirty. We're not going to take the time. Maybe we'll have something clean around, but it's not necessarily the right equipment, or it's broken. I've got a pie pan here. I could perhaps cook an egg in there if we're doing some breakfast. It's not the best equipment for it. And if I'm in a really bad mood and I look at my flipper, it's not much of a flipper, and I might just go, oh, wait a second. That looks like a flipper. There are lower levels in us where we might grab onto things that aren't so good for other people, where we're just not necessarily loving to the other people, but we're focusing our love on ourselves by going, I don't really feel like doing that. It's still a loving action, but who is it loving? All of these things, all of our actions and words come from love, no matter what they come, it's all from love. It's just about where that love is directed. I want to read a brief passage before we go on to our next song. And this talks about the universal categories that love takes within us. It says, True Christian Religion 403. It says, when the three universal categories of love are prioritized in us the right way, they improve us. When they are not prioritized in the right way, they damage us and turn us upside down. These three loves relate to each other, as do the three areas of the body. The highest is the head, the middle is the chest and the abdomen, and our thighs and lower legs and feet make up the lower third. When our love for heaven constitutes our head, our love for the world constitutes the chest and abdomen, and our love for ourselves constitutes our lower legs and feet. then we are in the perfect state that we are created to be in. In this state, the two lower categories of love serve the higher category in the way that the body and everything in it serves the head. Therefore, when a love for heaven constitutes the head, this love flows into our love for the world, which is chiefly a love for wealth, and takes advantage of that wealth to do useful things. Our love for heaven also flows through our love for the world into our love of self, which is chiefly a love for having high position, taking advantage of that high position to do useful things. Therefore, an inflow from one love into the next allows the three categories of love to join forces in order to do useful things. That's a great passage to help us just contextualize what we're acting from. And I think what we're hoping to do with this service, or what I am hoping to do, is set up some categories that when we can identify what kitchen am I cooking in. If I'm preparing a meal for somebody else, or if I'm preparing to have some kind of action or words with another person, if I'm trying to serve somebody with my life, there are different levels that I can do that from. I can do that from selfish purposes. I can serve other people as a means of making people think, hey, Alan's a cool guy. Or, hey, whatever it is, I can gain power by making other people think that I'm a good leader. There might be lots of different things that I can do from a selfish standpoint that would feed people. Whether it's healthy or good for them, that's another question. Same thing with the level of the world. We can do things just for the sense of gaining wealth. When those are what's driving us, then everything that's in our faith, everything that's in our heart, everything that's at our disposal gets used to lift ourselves up, to build ourselves up, instead of doing what the Lord wants us to do, which is to love others as He has loved us. So part of this service was based off of a TV show that my wife and I like to watch called Next Level Chef. It's a Gordon Ramsay show. And in this show, you actually have 3 different kitchens stacked one on top of the other. And the idea is that they have 3 teams, and basically they're trying to work their way out of the basement kitchen, which has the junkiest, worst equipment you could think of. It's like their ovens, the doors might be falling off, the things are just a mess. You probably got some pots and pans that have warped bottoms, aren't going to cook as evenly. You move up to the middle level, and there is the standard restaurant equipment. It's like if you actually had the wealth to have all the stuff that you would generally need, that's that kitchen. And then they have the highest one, which is kind of like the dream kitchen. It's got everything, all the bells and whistles. And then on top of that, they have this thing that goes down through the middle. It's an elevator that drops all of the ingredients, the fresh foods that they're going to use to prepare the meal. And so the top kitchen, they get the very first pick of all of the ingredients. The middle kitchen then gets second pick. And then the lowest one gets the last pick. And so you can see how this very much seems to line up with these categories of love. When we are working from the principles of the love of heaven, which is to love the Lord above all else and to love our neighbor as ourselves, and we'll find out from another passage, in heaven it's really about loving your neighbor more than yourself. Is that even possible? That's a good question. When we're operating from those principles, though, that's when we have the best ingredients, meaning the best ideas, meaning that our love is going to draw from the Lord ideas that will help us serve our neighbor. When we're operating from that middle category, we might stop forgetting why we're doing this, who we're serving, but we might still be doing it to make sure everything stays in order and we're keeping up with everything. All the bills are paid, our customers are happy, but it's not necessarily about that. It's just maintaining order. We get into that way in life a lot, where we're just maintaining order, going through the daily stuff, and we can often forget about the purpose, right? And then we have times where we really aren't operating from our best self. There are parts of that basement kitchen, though, that I want to say we do not want to forget. We don't want to forget to take care of the kitchen. We are that kitchen in many ways. We have to take care of ourselves in order to have wealth and prosperity, don't we? We have to take care of our minds so that we have positive, useful things to say. We have to take care of our physical body so that we can get up and actually do things for people. That part of us, the self, isn't something we ignore and say we're not supposed to love it. And I think that we tend to do that sometimes. We tend to put the love of self down and say, stomp on it so that I can love other people. The Lord is really trying to show us, no, we have an absolutely correct love of self when it is prioritized correctly. When we think of ourselves and our body as the tools, that our mind actually has the ingredients for serving other people. Everything in us, in the end, is for others. We might think about the Lord talking about how our cup might come to overflowing. I think that's a good way to think about filling ourselves or working with the Lord to the point where our cup is overflowing and then can fill others. We need a solid, good care for ourselves in order to do things for others. And we need resources. It's easy to go, don't need money. I hate money personally. I really don't like money. It's something that I wish didn't exist. And yet when you don't have enough of it, it makes things terrible. It makes things really hard. I definitely notice the difference between a nice frying pan and a cheap one. I can cook a lot better on a nice frying pan than on a cheap one. Especially try cooking eggs on something where it just sticks to the pan. It's the most annoying thing to try to cook a dippy egg. I don't know if anybody calls them dippy eggs. That we called them dippy egg. It's always going to break. If it sticks to the pan, it's not going to work. Investing in good equipment matters. And so all of these levels of building up ourselves, making ourselves have the resources, those are good things as long as they're not the purpose. The purpose is, who are we serving? And I want for each of us to take a moment to even think of somebody in your life. Maybe it's somebody that you really already are loving and just going, man, I would like to just show them that. And try to put these things into your own mind. What are you using? What's at your disposal? What are your ingredients? And how can you then make a meal, a spiritual meal perhaps, for them? This is a super short service, Tom. I have to say. I'm used to preaching much longer. So, I do want to get into how does the Lord encourage us to take these steps towards a greater, deeper love so that we can come out of the love of self in that negative sense where it's all about how am I making myself great and happy, into what the Lord is really wanting us to do, which is how do we utilize ourselves for the sake of others. And in Matthew chapter 5, this is in the Sermon on the Mount, the Lord comes to share with the people almost an update to the commandments. All of the Lord's commandments, I said at the beginning, all of the Lord's word is about leading us to love, correct? And so when we read commandments, especially when we're reading in the Old Testament, the lists of laws and their punishments and stuff like that, it can sound really harsh. And we go through, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not, here's the fire and brimstone we were talking about, musicians earlier. There's a lot of fire and brimstone in those commandments. And the Lord comes, and it sounds like he's making it even harsher. But I want us to try to listen to this passage and think about how this is the Lord encouraging us to take steps more deeply in towards what real love is. So it says, seeing the multitudes, Jesus went up onto the mountains, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, he goes through the blessings, the Beatitudes, and continuing, he says, do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or one tittle will by no means pass away from the law until it is fulfilled. Now he says, you have heard it said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you, whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whoever says to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whoever says, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother, then come offer your gift. You can see a little bit there of this is trying to get out of some of that thoughts of self. The Lord's trying to deepen our understanding. Where does murder come from? Most of us probably don't have a tendency to just go, I'm going to off that person who made me. But if the Lord is saying it's not just about that, when I'm cooking, there are times where I might go, it's a little dirty. It also might have some diseases in there too. That's not very good. If I don't pay attention to the foods that I'm preparing, whether it's chicken, maybe it's bad, it's got salmonella. If I'm not paying attention to those things, maybe it's because I don't care enough. Maybe that murder is actually something about hate. If I don't like the person, if I hate them, am I going to care when I'm preparing that meal? I didn't purposefully kill them. The Lord's trying to take us a step in and say all ideas that lead to murder come from the concept of hatred, from that concept of separating ourselves from others and putting others down. It's a deeper version of this commandment. He does it again with verse 27. He says, you have heard it said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in her heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it's more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. Again, you have heard it said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oaths to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all. Neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by your head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. You have heard it said that it was an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on the right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. The final one we'll read says, you have heard it said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, and do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. The last line of this explains, therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. Is it possible for us to reach that level of perfection? Or is that a challenge? Is that a challenge from the Lord to keep taking steps inward? when we find ourselves in a state where we're more depleted, where we need to be a bit more self-centered perhaps, maybe notice that. Instead of trying to serve others in that moment, which with possibly toxic things, if I was thinking about that situation with my wife and just going, no, you do the dishes, I did them last, is that really going to help anybody? I could snap back at that. Or I can stop myself in the moment and go, hey, I'm on the basement level of my kitchen. Do I want to be serving food right now? Do I need to wash the dishes first? Literally, I did. When I came to and that wasn't about me, guess what I did? I went and washed the dishes happily. It wasn't even a problem. It was just I was depleted. My hope for us this morning is to think about how we can prepare for sharing this meal with other people. Because in our natural lives, if we want to have a dinner party, if we want to have somebody over for dinner, we actually have to have ingredients to cook the things. And we have to have the knowledge of how to make the meal. And those are things that we do on that basement level. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to learn the information. We have to train ourselves how to cook. We have to go shopping. We have to have the money to buy the food. Or we need to be farmers and can make the food. All of those lower level things are things we have to prioritize in time so that we can prioritize our love for the neighbor and our love for the Lord in purpose. So I want us to be thinking about what ingredients are you gathering? Imagine that person that you're wanting to show love to. What ingredients do you already have at your disposal to make them a meal? If you're coming up with blanks, maybe you need to invest time in learning about them perhaps, or also building up new skills. Going to the spiritual store, going to the Lord's Word, learning more about how to love one another as He has loved us. Finding places where we can actually gather ingredients is a big part of what our life is about. Coming to places like church, spending time with people who actually think well of others, getting together and serving with other people. All of that actually kind of fills up our pantry. It fills up our refrigerator with good, fresh stuff so that when we are asked for something, when my wife comes home and says, the dishes, I'm not going to just go, I've got this thing here. I'm prepared. I've got vegetables. I've got these good, healthy things that I can then respond with. I need to wrap things up here. To do that, I want to think about that meal. And I want to share a little story about a couple that I got to marry down in Florida. And this couple, when I was getting to know them, I often start with a question of why are you getting married? And I got one of the most beautiful answers out of the husband in this case. He immediately answered with, oh, she's honest. Instant, she's honest. And he went on to explain, I grew up in Puerto Rico, he said. And I grew up in a family that mostly were thieves. And everybody lied all the time. You didn't know when anybody was telling the truth. And this is a 50-year-old man who's lived life in that mindset of dealing with constant lying, constant thieving, constant everything that you could imagine going on with that. And his father passed away, and in his grief, this girl that he had known from the bar, she was the bartender there, called him up and said, hey, I don't know how you're doing, but let me take you out. I know your father just passed. And they were sitting there playing pool together, and he had a message from his grandfather saying, this is the one. And he sat there and looked at her, and he thought about it, and immediately he realized she's never told him a lie. To him, that was a feast. He would not want to go anywhere else. It was instant for him. That's what he needed. He was starved for truth and honesty, and this woman offered that. Truth and honesty was what he needed. That was the meal that she provided. What a cool little way to think about love. That we each have something that we can offer to somebody else that will fill them in a way that they're starving. How can we utilize ourselves, the things that we have at our disposal, those lower kitchens, the basement, and the standard stuff, so that we can really serve higher purposes? Amen. Close with a passage. So this passage is in Heaven and Hell, number 406, and it's talking about some new spirits who came to the other world and are finding out about the laws of that kingdom. And it begins talking about how important it is. When you go to another country, the most important thing is you know their laws. And so it continues from there, saying, how much more important must this be in the kingdom where we are going to live forever? We should realize then that it is the Lord who governs heaven and the universe, for whoever rules the one rules the other as well. This means that the kingdom we will find ourselves in belongs to the Lord, and that the laws of his kingdom are eternal truths based on the law that we should love the Lord above all and our neighbor as ourselves. Not only that, but if we want to be like angels, we need to love our neighbor more than ourselves. Now, when these spirits who had just arrived heard this last point, they were unable to respond because they had heard something like this during their physical lives, but had not believed it. They wondered whether there was that kind of love in heaven, whether it was possible for anyone to love his or her neighbor more than his or herself. They were told, though, that in the other life, everything good increases immensely. Life in a physical body cannot by nature progress beyond loving one's neighbor as the self, because it is immersed in physical concerns. Once these are removed, though, the love becomes purer and ultimately angelic, which is loving one's neighbor more than oneself. This is because in the heavens, doing good for someone else is a delight, and doing good for oneself is not, unless it is to give to another, and therefore for the sake of the other. This is loving one's neighbor more than oneself. I just love that image to know that while we're in this body, there are going to be physical restrictions on our ability to really love our neighbor in the ways that we hope for. But man, in heaven, yeah, this is a nice natural frying pan, but let me tell you what, we've got an amazing kitchen up there to look forward to, and the types of love we're going to get to express there is just beyond comprehension, and it's beyond happiness that we've experienced here. Thank you all very much for this today, and I think we'll rise for a benediction and closing of the word. Let's bow for a benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace. Amen.